Hey everybody, Steve here with Local Level Podcast. I'm sitting here today with Annie and Donald Farrell of Annie's Resale for the World. It's a pleasure to have both of you on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for inviting us.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, after hearing about your story and what it is that you do, I had to have you on because it's some very important work that you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about Annie's Resale?
Sure. Donald and I founded Annie's Resale for the World in 2012. And we had a desire to raise some funds for some people we had met around the world who were serving the extreme poor. So we wanted to combine my long-held love of resale and consignment shopping with funding that would have a ripple effect that would benefit other people.
Well, it definitely has, and you have the pictures to prove it. What we were talking about when we were on the phone was that when you actually go into the shop, you have pictures of some of the lives that you've changed around the world on the walls.
Yes, we do. We have lots of enlargements. We're located at 2120 Plum Grove Road in Rolling Meadows between Kirchhoff and Euclid. And we're open Wednesday through Saturday, closed Mondays and Tuesdays. And we are in our 8th year of business and really, really excited about it.
Yeah, well, 8 years in business, that's a feat in itself. What do they say? The first and the third, and then I guess every other
That's
year.
right. That's right. That's what people kept warning us about.
Yeah, I think that when you're at 8 years, you've kind of seen your ups and downs, but it looks like you're doing it right.
You know, we feel like the machine is working.
Well, that's good.
We created this machine where people donate nice things to us. We present them for sale. We sell them in our shop, and then we can turn around and speak to we have 7 partners, and we have 6 overseas and 1 in Chicago. We ask them, what do you need? What's in the forefront for you right now? And then we send a check. So the machine is definitely working. We're very, very pleased.
Well, that's great to hear. And so what can people expect to see when they walk through the door?
Ooh, before I let Annie go on that, one of the things I like to tell people, Steve, is that when you open the door at 2120 North, everything you see, the paint on the wall, the electricity, the car, everything, the clothes, the donations, the houseware is donated. We have loyal customers. We have people who are not customers, who are donors and give out of their hearts for the poor. And I think that mission, which we'll talk about throughout this broadcast, really carries people into committed kind of giving. So when you hold that kind of truth and walk through the store, it really, to me, still 8 years later, is a wow.
Yeah.
And we did try to make it boutique-like. We're small. We're about 1,500 square feet. We feature primarily women's clothing, accessories. We have some men's clothing and kids' clothing, housewares, things like that. But we wanted to present a nice, clean, organized shop with good quality merchandise that was presented well. And we wanted our shop to be a place of welcome and support and encouragement for people. And so the pictures on the wall represent what we do around the world and what we do locally. And we just wanted we want those visual reminders out to let people see what we're doing.
What's always interesting about these types of things, there's a lot of people that accept donations, and there's a lot of businesses that do similar things. There's a lot of clothing stores, but a for-purpose model is always interesting because you're not doing this to get rich. You know, you're not doing this to get rich, and it's something that people talk about. What can I do? People want to make a difference. People talk about, well, what can I do? Is there something I can volunteer? Is there something I can, whether it's money or time? But for a lot of these organizations that you donate to, you can't see the results. You know, you can't look on the wall and see the picture of the kid wearing the T-shirt that, you know, got donated last week, you know, or last month or whenever. And that's a huge difference because, you know, like I said, you have the pictures on the wall to prove it. It's like the receipts, you know. So let's go back a little bit. What got you into the state of mind? What did you go through in life that got you to the point where you decided, well, you know what, I think this is what I need to do with my life?
It's all his fault.
She keeps blaming me.
Donald, tell about how you first started when we met and your trips to Cambodia and how you got me started and all that.
And I'll jump one more. There's someone I got to blame that I've never met yet in person, and that's Annie's mother raised her in the resale shops on the North Shore.
Yes, she did.
And taught her the ups and the downs, the ins and the outs of resale shopping. So it was in her fabric and in her knower before I introduced myself and tried to share some amorous concerns that were expressed. Annie, after that?
Well, we both traveled around the world. We were working for international relief agencies that were serving the extreme poor, mostly people living under $1 a day. So collectively, we've been to Cambodia, Thailand, Burma, Russia, Haiti, Kenya, and Uganda.
Wow.
And our board members have been to India and several other places. So collectively, we settled on six smaller mission partners, some are larger in scale, who are serving the poor in their own cities and towns and communities overseas. And then one in Chicago by the name of New Moms. They help at-risk young women who have had a baby and need some mentoring, some support on how to raise a baby and how to create a healthy family. So as a result of those events, we started the shop to get them some support.
Annie mentions New Moms, and one of the things that captured our heart, I actually worked with a colleague who was the CEO of what became New Moms. And the girls are often addicted. A good explanation to keep a long story short about their backgrounds is they have fallen through the sewers of all the social service agencies in Chicago. They have failed at foster care, adoptive care. They've been homeless. They've been addicted to many different kinds of things, behaviors, as well as substances. And for that reason, they're seen as total failures by the police, by the social service agency, and the judges. And one of those women actually achieved getting the home open years ago. And now a federal grant that was sent by Barack Obama to the city of Chicago gained for them a police training center on the west side of Chicago. An architect came forward and created apartments, and these girls have a great chance at rehabbing their life. They have a business internal to their residence. They learn how to run a business. They put it on their resume. It's an absolutely exceptional mission, and we were really happy to include them in the group of missions we were helping support. New Moms.
We wanted to serve locally as well as internationally.
Yeah.
And if I could, Steve, you were asking about how we got started.
Yeah.
We wanted to find a place in this area, and we started looking. We looked in a lot of different areas. We found a home for us, and the property manager, we actually became friends. She's treated us very well. And we started with just this empty, it used to be the Pepperidge Farm outlet.
Oh, wow.
And right up the road, and it was this big, empty, white, rectangular box. One of our board members, fortunately, is a carpenter, so he would say, draw what you want and we'll build it. So he did the shelving, Donald worked with a lot of the guys to get the carpeting down, the dressing rooms built, the back room built, and it came out beautifully. And then we went to all our friends and said, give us your really good stuff so
Yeah.
we can sell it. So we filled the store. One Saturday, we opened up the store in October of 2012, and we sold things. And from that point on, we've never been empty of donations. We've had some lean years, as you
Sure,
know,
of
small
course.
businesses, you get on those waves of challenging years,
Yeah.
but we're actually, our sales are getting stronger, our donations are getting stronger, and our gifts to our partners are getting a little bigger. So we're really, really excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're in this type of thing, and you have to decide where the money is going to go, that has to be a difficult decision because there's only so much to go around. How do you decide?
With prayer.
Prayer.
Okay,
And we're not kidding.
yeah, I believe you.
That's the toughest board meeting of the year.
Yeah.
Lively, when I say tough, lively with the different opinions and the sense of need around the world. And I can tell you over 8 years, I wouldn't have done a single check different after the outcome of where we sent what the Lord blessed us with. And people, by vote on the board, are very happy with it. So
They do count on us because we communicate with the partners pretty regularly, several times a year or more, and we ask them, what's your most pressing need right now? We write them all down. We ask them for facts and figures, and then we see. We always say we have to cut our profit pie in 7 pieces. So we try to delegate fairly evenly among the 7. Some years, there's just like the crisis in Syria. We have a partner in Syria who's helping refugees. After ISIS blows up a town, they go into the town and they buy water and mattresses and food. That's a real, emergency need.
Yeah.
So, but we do try to do the disbursements evenly, and if we are a little short with one partner, we try to make it up the next year. But we do try to share with everyone. And the beauty is sometimes, just even a $5,000 check can make a big change overseas.
Absolutely, I can imagine.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's exciting for us. But we have been able to, as a matter of fact, I just read a journal of mine from 8 years ago, and we had been open for 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote a $150 check to each of our partners, it was like the first gift we were able to give in 8
she
weeks.
cried all the way through that.
It was
Out of joy.
I was like, it works. So it was very exciting. And now, our giving varies with the sales, and we also give from fundraisers and direct checks. We always tell people, if you write us a check and you have a particular country or a particular project on your heart, we will give 100% of your check to that project.
Wow.
So
that's a claim that not a lot of people are willing to make.
Yeah, we can't do that with every penny of our sales, but we can definitely do that with donations.
Wow.
Steve, I got to tell on my wife here. She mentioned the word heart a moment ago. And she has such a heart because customers have seen what I'm about to tell you. When our partners, husband and wife and children, are in town and at the store, we open up the store to their personal needs. And they can take shoes and pants and shirts and coats and gloves, which they don't have for themselves or their children, and be blessed.
Right.
I'll be real clear, not pay for it.
Yeah.
It's our gift, the store's gift to them. And that word gets out
Yeah.
as the customers see that kind of heart being expressed by Annie's Resale. And it's real contagious. People tell people. And so some of the new customers come in and say, I've heard stories about you. And it's beautiful when those stories are an open heart caring for people who otherwise wouldn't have one short story. One of our partners from India actually came in and didn't have money when he got off the plane to buy his son a Coke. And which also meant he didn't have money to buy dinner or breakfast the next day or whatever. And so we have a little pot of gold, Annie, what's the name
The
of
blessings
it?
jar.
The blessings jar, which we use that people can give out of their heart for the poor and give to our partners, and that helps fund their stay when they're here in the States. And it works really, really well to advance the store and the mission of the store one step further.
If I could tell one quick story about things
Sure.
that happen in the atmosphere of the store. I'm always excited when one of our partners, like our Kenya partner, our Haiti partner, our India partners, when they're in the shop, because it
Yeah.
helps people connect the dots. Like, oh, these are the people we're supporting.
Yeah.
So one time we have a gal who lives in Palatine. She's Guatemalan American, and she goes to Guatemala and brings clothing to the poorest hospitals in the country. She goes right to the maternity wards. So she was telling me the story about a young couple in Guatemala that were in the hospital. The wife had just had a baby, and they had no baby clothes. And the nurse went up to the husband and said, "You're going to have to go outside and pick out some leaves to wrap your baby in because it's time for you to go, and we don't have any clothes. We don't have anything to give you." And Enid is telling this story to me at our front counter, and one of our customers heard it, came up to me in tears and said, "I will crochet blankets for those babies."
Wow.
And she did. And so Enid then took the blankets down, and we have pictures of Enid with the baby blankets. So the customers hear all this, and they're taken with it. They get it. They make the connection. So it's really exciting.
Well, I mean, the stories that you're telling almost seem like a fairy tale.
Yes.
It doesn't even seem like a real thing. You hear all day about all these negative things going on, here and over there and everywhere. And we don't really hear about these good stories as much. And when we do, I don't think people really believe that it's actually real.
Right.
I could tell you one more quick story.
Yeah.
And he told you about the knit. There's folks in Central America taking wedding dresses and making burial gowns for
Yeah.
babies who haven't made it to full term and birth.
That's the woman
And-
in Wheeling. Yes.
Woman in Wheeling.
Yes. Resting in his arms.
And that's just extreme. I saw
Yeah.
some of those burial, I don't know what to call them, dresses, garbs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And that somebody thought about doing that for the mother who just lost that baby and for the father and family who just lost that baby
Yeah.
is fantasy. Had no idea, Steve, when we opened Annie's Resale for the world, that this kind of network that we're talking about right now was going to extend the goodness and the graces of the mission
Right.
of the store all around the world.
And another thing that you brought up when we were talking on the phone was the fact that for you it is a faith-based thing.
Yes.
It's that for you, but that's not necessarily the focus of it. The focus is what you provide and the work that you do, and you partner with people of all different faiths and
Absolutely.
from all different people across the world. When you started, like you said, you didn't really think that it was going to get to where it is now, but where did you think that it was going to go?
We hoped. We hoped that, and we still hope and pray today that we can expand our giving to our partners. We'd like to limit it to 7 because that's a lot.
That's a nice number too.
Yeah, it's a nice number. You've
Yeah.
got 6 overseas, 1 local. The gift in kind, the local things we do are fun as well. But we've thought about, because people say, well, you have to get a bigger store because, you guys are doing so well, or you have to start selling furniture, and, but that means we'd love to. We would need more funding to,
Right.
pay for some staff and pay for some more rental space and drivers and things like that. But right now, with the resources we have, we can only handle the size that we have. But people keep saying you should. As a matter of fact, someone offered us some free square footage for Annie's number 2. I almost had a heart failure. I was like, I wish I could, but I don't think I can do it. I don't think we can do it right now. But we're open to it. Whatever opens up for us and whatever we have funding for, we will do. And I have to say real quick, Steve, our organization is primarily run by volunteers.
Yes.
I'm the executive director. We have one part-time store manager, but we have a team of women who are so hardworking, and we are not spring chickens. Okay, I'm 65. A lot of our volunteers are in the 50 to 60 range. I don't think they'll mind me telling you that, and they work hard. It's really labor intensive. You're sorting through hefty bags and boxes of donations every day, and you're lifting and moving and standing and stooping and bending and waiting on customers. And without our team of volunteers, we would simply not be in existence.
Yeah.
They're like gold, and I tell them that all the time. Without them and what they do, we have a specialist in jewelry, we have a specialist in housewares, we have specialists in clothing, we have specialists, people who are just good organizers.
Yeah.
They know how to spatially organize us in our smaller spot.
And display.
And display.
Yeah, merchandising.
Oh my gosh, merchandising. So without them, I cannot be remiss in saying that without them, we would not have been in existence.
I don't know. It's volunteers are amazing.
Yes,
It's amazing because people will give their time, and time is much more valuable than dollars. And,
Oh my gosh.
but these people, a lot of times they could probably use the money.
Absolutely. And I sure wish I could pay them all.
right. But for people that are around listening, what can they do to volunteer? Is there anything that you can use a hand with besides just dropping off clothes? What can people do primarily to help you?
That's a really good question. There's several ways. Absolutely volunteering, even if it's an hour or two a week, just to be among people and serve a good cause. It's fun. If you'd rather work in the background as opposed to the front of the store, you can certainly do that. So we do need volunteers. I could use help with things like social media, marketing,
Right.
those types, like you.
Right.
God bless you. And we can use help with donation of items for sale. Because we are small, we try to put a good quality item out. So we ask people for gently used clothing and materials and things like that. And
We're excited by the high school requirement that
Yes.
students have to
Yes.
have certain number of social service hours before they graduate.
yes,
And that has been rich for them and rich for us.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a great program, and believe it or not, I actually I had two teachers, one from Rolling Meadows, one from Hersey, and what they're doing is they're building tiny homes for vets. They're
Wonderful.
they're teaming up with a foundation called the Nine Line Foundation, and they have the kids in class actually learning skills, building skills, and actually building tiny homes.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
So that was a great project, and I love the fact that because I went to both. I went to school out here, but I went to school in the city, and there's a huge difference. Especially then. But now that's part of the curriculum is given back and given some sort of charity, and I think it's so helpful for the kids to actually get a chance to operate in the real world.
Yes.
Just those experiences of being behind the counter, interacting with customers, organizing, seeing how a business runs, seeing what the problems are, cleaning up, all those things are huge, valuable skills that are so you're doing positive things on both ends.
Yes, young people particularly are interested in humanitarian aid, social justice, all of those issues. And we work with Fremd High School and Schaumburg High School in this area. We love the young folks that come in, and some of them are really taken by what we do. They tell their families about it, and they do get a good experience, ringing up customers, waiting on people, being responsible. If you're not coming in, please text me,
Right,
that type
right.
of thing. So it's really a win-win for us and for them, I think, these kinds of programs that allow for the volunteer experience.
I love that. I love that. And
Right.
I think there's a huge value in the fact that they see the actual people that have it much worse than they do,
Oh, yes.
and see the difference and how fortunate we are to be able to live where we are living. All the rhetoric aside, all the politics and all those different things, we have it pretty good.
Oh, yes, we do.
And we're in a position, even, not to minimize people's problems, but even some of the worse off people in our culture have it 10 times better, than people around the world as far as disease and access to clean water and things go.
And the question that we're discussing right now is, what can people do?
Right.
And an interesting little twist on that answer is, very close to us, there's a warehouse called Feed My Starving Children.
Yeah.
And they're packing food for starving kids around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We experienced through Warm Blankets Orphan Care, where we both worked years ago,
Now known as Kinship United.
now known as Kinship United. Thanks for this commercial. Needing food in Cambodia. And today there's hundreds, if not thousands, of orphans depending and leaning on the food that's packed here in Schaumburg.
Yeah.
We're excited that some of our people who not only are involved in the store, but involved in our church that we're involved in, and others that they attract, go over and pack food for starving kids. And then it's just hands off. It's like you're getting the impact of what you're doing, and the staff there is so excited about what they're accomplishing. Every 5 minutes there's an announcement, and that one of the most exciting things going on in our community. And it's a joy to be able to share that kind of strength in
Yeah.
serving. Way back, Steve, if I was to reminisce just a moment, I had a sense back in college that a life verse was that the Son of God came to serve, not to be served, and give his life as a ransom for many. And my greatest joy is serving. It's not being stuck in a building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either of worship or behind office or whatever, but serving the people who need to be served. And
You also said, not to cut you off, but you before we turned on the cameras, you were mentioned, or I think you mentioned that you work in the correction system.
prison ministry, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that for a second?
Yeah, Koinonia House Ministries was actually founded. Founder was Chuck Colson.
Right.
Okay.
And he partnered up with Manny Mill, who is still CEO and leading Koinonia House Ministries now. And we serve prison families and prisoners going into prison, while they're in prison, and when they're coming out, which is a very difficult community adjustment kind of challenge.
Yeah.
And across the nation, the recidivism where men and women are returning at a very high rate, like 75% is often a low estimate. We try to help get them connected to local churches, local businesses, get working, get a job, getting a acceptable living arrangement,
Yeah.
so they can stop the downward cycle that's taken their life back into prison again.
Right.
And it is difficult.
Yeah, I can attest. I know much about that, and it's one of the things about that is that, you feel that hopelessness, when you get out of those things, the
Yes.
hopelessness, and you feel like everybody's rooting for you to fail, for the most part,
The beauty of this ministry under Manny Mill is that they see someone through all the way from the day that they're convicted and driven to prison
Yeah.
to the day that they are released, and they have the program called Meet Me at the Gate.
Oh, wow.
Where they meet someone at the gate the day they're released
Yeah.
and try to stand beside them for that adjustment back into the real world as it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And it's a beautiful ministry.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's for many of these people that you're helping and providing things to. They're forgotten people. They're overlooked. They're marginalized because of
Yes.
Either just the location they were born,
Yes.
the politics in that place, and that goes for here too. I mean, for a lot of the people that are in the the prison system, it's because of lack of education. Is a huge cause, but the family situation was bad. And you gotta live, and sometimes. In places in the city in particular, the way to survive is to do things that aren't illegal or aren't
Exactly.
legal. And when you get out, you're even in a worse position because you have nobody, and you have a conviction, and so
A record.
Yeah, you have a record, so it's hard to get back on your feet, getting
Yes.
a job, and taking care of your family if you have one, and just taking care of yourself. So having somebody in your corner is very, very valuable. Just knowing people are there that care.
And we have people in our lives, people we know who've done their time. They've paid their dues. They,
Right.
they want to pick up. They repented of whatever happened, and they just want to get back with their lives. So
Right.
yes, it's a hugely important issue
Absolutely.
and a
Yeah.
ministry. Steve, if I could mention one thing as we're talking about the store and the stories and everything, there are some people who come in who just want a good deal on a dress,
Sure, of
and
course.
there's nothing wrong with that, because
Yeah.
I've been reselling for 45 years. I like a good deal on a dress too. but then there's little things like we have a glass counter in the store, and I have a Nature Valley granola bar wrapper under the glass, and people come up and they point and they go, "What is that?" I said, "Well, there's a little story about that. I was in Uganda, in a rural village in Uganda, and our team leader said, I want you to split off in twos, and we're going to have a local person go around and just show you about village life in Busia, Uganda."
Yeah.
So we did that. We had a tall, grandfatherly gentleman. His name was Oyeda. And so he's taking us around and showing us the village, and he says, "Can we stop at my house?" And we said, "Sure." So we go into his house, and it was him, his sister, and his wife. And he made kind of crude wooden furniture, and he was showing us the furniture and saying, "This is how I make a living." And all of a sudden, these little kids come in, and they're a little barefoot. They've got their little school uniforms on, and they're looking at us. Some of these kids had never seen a white person in their entire life. So they're like, "Who
Or
are
a
these?"
blonde,
Or a
much
blonde.
less.
Right. Yeah.
So Oyeda says, "Oh, these are some friends from the U.S. and they've come to visit us." And I just said, "Have the kids eaten yet?" And he goes, "Well, they'll eat at some point today." So I had a granola bar in my backpack, and I took it out and I said, "Can I give the kids a piece?" And he said, "Sure." So I'm breaking off little pieces of this granola bar, and the little kids, go like this and cup their hands. So I'm putting a little piece into each hand, and I turn around, and Oyeda and his sister and his wife have their hands cupped out. And I'm thinking, okay, 6 people in this house are hungry. They're hungry. So, you feed 6 people with a Nature Valley granola bar. And Donald, you have your granola bar story in Haiti with Pastor Stanley, if you could tell that when you were with Pastor Stanley.
Well, if I could change the story.
Sure.
We were doing some work in Haiti, and one of my mission trips there, we went to evaluate a pilot project feeding program that was going on in rural schools. And when I say that, they're barely schools.
Right.
They're grass and rope and tree
Wow.
branches tied together with a tarp thrown over the top. And that's the school.
Wow.
With hewn out benches from trees that are barely adequate enough to support 2 or 3 kids. And the mission, the church tries to raise money to pay a teacher to come in and teach the kids, but there is no feeding program, and the problem is those kids are starving to death.
Oh, man.
The orange hair, the huge pain in the stomach, the distraction of all of what starvation causes, and they cannot learn. It's just that simple. They cannot learn. So the first visit to a school was a school that was being fed, and those kids wore blue uniforms. And the kids were normal kids. Discipline problems.
Yeah, right.
Somebody wanting to play on the monkey bars, and there was the side wall of the school, and pushing and all kinds of
Yeah.
normal, healthy, good, problem-based kids' behavior. And we told them how much of a pleasure it was to visit them and how exciting it was for us to send food to them and that kind of thing. And they could expect that we were going to send more. And we were also talking to the administrators.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pastors involved in the feeding program took us to another school. And those kids, all the kids wore pink uniforms. And these kids were not being fed.
Mm.
And it felt, the whole school atmosphere, classrooms felt evil. It was painful to be there because the kids were in so much pain.
Just
it was
misery.
so obvious. The orange hair, the distorted, affected skin that was not healthy and things like that. They couldn't bear their pain. They were bent over because the discipline was so extreme to try to keep them under control that they didn't dare jump around or leave the school or anything like that. But they didn't have any feeding program. And I just came back absolutely brokenhearted
Yeah, I can imagine.
and said, that's not right for anywhere in the world not to have food. So when I came back from that trip, I picked up a telephone thinking I was going to start doing that all on my own, and I think God was ahead of me. And within, I think, 48 hours, there were 4 churches that were funding the school program, and in about 2 weeks, we raised over $100,000 to feed all the schools who were not being fed in that rural program for the rest of the year. And then the next year and the next year, those funds came in also. So it was really exciting, and we're still partners with that mission. That's Jerusalem Baptiste de Pignon, a Christian church that doesn't limit its services to just Christians, but to people
Yeah,
that they feel like God's people. God's created all people.
right.
And they have some great ancillary missions that they do in the capital of Haiti, and serving disabled people who are crawling along the ground because they don't have the money to get services for prosthetics and that kind of thing. And it's just a great mission.
Donald uses the phrase indelible pictures. In the travels that we've done, we haven't traveled in 12, 15 years, either of us, overseas. But the things we saw and the people we met and the little granola bar moments,
Yeah.
pink kids, blue kids, and so many stories, they're indelible. It's like we couldn't forget about them. And we thought, and so that's why we went to work for these agencies that were helping,
Right.
because they had vehicles and resources to, fundraise, as Donald says, for the feeding program, and that was through Bright Hope. And so we just couldn't forget about it. So we thought, well, what can we do in our own simple little way to get some money to them? And now we have, and the thing we love about our partners is we tell people, because our Kenya partner said to us once, he said, the thing with American people, what they say to me is that the need in the world is too overwhelming.
Right.
We don't know who to trust. We don't know what organizations to trust. We don't know if we're going to make an impact or how we can make an impact. But he always tells them, just do one thing.
Right.
If everyone in America did one thing for one person, one family, one neighborhood, one community, one country, whatever,
Yeah.
the ripple effect would be fantastic.
Well, this came up all three interviews, all three people that I talked to today. I mean, you count as one, I guess. Have brought that up that it's hopeless. People think it's hopeless. Oh, there's
Right.
just too much. We
Right.
can't do it. It's not even worth it.
Right.
But yeah, you got to start somewhere. You got to do
Right.
something because that's how things get done.
That's right. That's
And-
right.
And that's the moral of the story.
Right.
There's endless stories because there's as long as there's the ability to give and the willingness to give and give back to less fortunate people, and there's people like you that are willing to facilitate that and spend their time and organize, then people will get help. But what we're talking about here is you can go down the street to your resale shop and buy something that you would buy at another store, something that's great for a great price. You're going to save money, but the money that you're actually giving you, it's going to save people's lives.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's so powerful.
And I will say that there's a lot of beautiful causes in all of the nonprofit stores around here or anywhere I've been.
Sure.
Some help with domestic violence, some help with homelessness, crisis pregnancy, women's empowerment overseas.
Sure.
So we're certainly not the only one, and we're certainly not the biggest one, probably
Sure.
one of the smallest. But if every person just does something, just whatever with whatever you have, the ripple effect, I think, in our world would just be so much more powerful. And we do have the power to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Donald and I he kids me. He wanted to call our store Swan Resale, which means started without a nickel.
Yeah.
Because
Which
we
was the
literally
truth.
started without a nickel.
I like that.
We
Yeah.
didn't borrow a penny. Everything was volunteer. It was built voluntarily. The contents that we sold were voluntarily received, and we really did start without a nickel. And
Thank
now-
God the name was taken.
and now we're in year 8, and we do what we can do. Just little things like for $6,000, you can build a playground for kids in Uganda that they've never had. They've
Right.
never had anything decent to swing on or a slide or,
Yeah.
So-
be a kid, just to live.
be a kid. Exactly.
Too worried about finding food.
Yes.
That playground has beautiful background to it.
Yeah.
Butch and Jennifer Dodds-White, whose kids graduated from the University of California, and went and joined mom and dad in doing their mission in Kampala,
Uganda. yes.
Uganda. That playground, Steve, kids of every religion you can think of and then some come to that school, walk miles and miles and miles through territory that is so unsafe from kids being stolen and put into child slavery that parents have to walk them to school, sit and wait for them, and if they're coming home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they have to wait for them, and so we help build kind of a sun-covered patio so parents could sit in the safety from the sun and talk and fellowship together a little bit with each other while they waited for their children.
Wow.
Those kids, some of those kids are Muslims under Sharia law, and their parents risk being killed and their child taken back and put in an ashram and never returned to them because they're raising them wrong. And there's Bible taught, Christian Bible, taught at that school on Thursday nights to those who will attend. And guess what? There's no problem. Because everything else is so okay, and the value of an education and the way people are being treated compassionately and with grace and favor and fervor, there is no trouble. While it surrounds them and readily available. And I can't tell you what a joy it is for me to be a small part of service to that school program. And by the way, because of Annie's poured out efforts, they named that playground Annie's Playground.
Wow.
They sent me a picture. The kids made this little wooden plaque, and I opened my computer and I opened the picture and I just went, oh my God. But you know what you were saying, Steve, about how fortunate we are? Our partners have dealt with the likes of Idi Amin and Joseph Kony in Uganda and Pol Pot in Cambodia, and just these horrible dictatorial, oppressive situations where they had no freedoms and they lived in fear, and just any little relief that you can bring people means a lot, because we do have it easy. We have so much freedom, and we don't even realize it. I didn't realize it until I went overseas and saw it for myself.
It's just eye-opening sometimes when you hear stories about things that these stories, and like I say, it's so extreme, these stories, that you don't even really believe that it's real. And it is. It really is real.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Yes.
and we're upset because the internet's slow or the cable TV's out, and or we're laying down because we're uncomfortable because we ate too much.
Right, exactly.
Think of these problems that we have, but it is true that we do have problems, and they're different problems.
Yes.
They're mental problems
Yes.
a lot of times. They're mental health problems because of the abundance and all the different things that we have. We make problems because
Yes.
we don't have enough.
Right.
And
there is hunger in America. There is
Sure.
poverty in America. The difference is there are zero government programs in other countries. I mean, Donald went into a refugee camp in Thailand, and they said, let me show you our medical clinic, and there was nothing on the shelves. There wasn't a Band-Aid. There wasn't a piece of gauze. There was a couple of mats on the floor. This is our hospital clinic.
Yeah, it's a place to lay and stay sick.
After that visit to that camp, those people were escaping the genocide of the Communist Army attack on the tribal people of Cambodia. I got back to my hotel about 2 o'clock in the morning and was exhausted and sat down on the floor of the end of my bed and just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. Couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And he said something that just flows. But I was in the hospital, and Steve, there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. And 2 people laying on mats dying. No aspirin, no acetaminophen, no Tylenol. Just somebody who was a caregiver that had the compassion to sit and wait for them to pass.
And here's the beauty of it. People around us bring in lovely clothing, jewelry, accessories, beautiful stuff. So many people say to me, Annie, I give you my good stuff because we love what you're doing. And that just makes my heart, beam.
Sure.
Because they get it. And,
Yeah.
and they love it. And that's why they support the other stores. Maybe domestic violence has been your issue and your heart, then you give to that store, wherever your heart. But we wanted to do it for the world because that's what we saw. And that's what we witnessed, and that's where our heart is. But wherever your heart is, you can serve somebody.
Just do something.
Just do something, right.
One of the mission partners that we serve, their name of their organization is Partners Relief and Development. Mm-hmm. And they started in Asia, and started when a pastor and his wife, who were pastors in Alaska went down and saw what was happening in Cambodia and couldn't leave. They literally could not come home for their annual meeting for their not-for-profit status on their church, and been serving ever since. The U.S. government learned about what they were doing for the good, and invited them to come to the Syria-Iraq situation to help to be a compassionate arm to what those people were facing. And Steve and Ani Gumer and their daughters, who have never been in a normal school day in the United States, serving around the world like we're talking about today, join them in Syria and Iraq. And Partners Relief and Development was walking behind the 8th Military Armored Division of the U.S. Army as we attacked the tenement buildings where ISIS was held up and holding those people captive. And when the army has to keep moving because they're under attack, so when they free a building, they haven't stopped to take care of those people and minister to them. They're under attack, and they've got to keep attacking to make the battle in their favor. Right behind those tanks was Partners.
Yeah.
That's
Relief and Development with a bottle of water.
Or a blanket.
Well, that's
And somebody asked, why are you doing that? And that because you're important. They didn't sow the gospel, or they didn't sell the gospel or pass out tracts at that time. Oh, yes, they believe in God, and yes, they believe in Jesus Christ, but that wasn't what was going on. It was the recognition of those people are worthwhile for a bottle of water.
Right.
And they helped him to the care of the sleeping blankets that they were going to need on the desert floor, because the desert floor gets wet at night. And they found a way to provide these people with mats in the bottom of their sleeping bags so they don't wake up soaking wet. In the morning, a bottle of water and a sleeping bag.
These were our partners.
Partners Relief and Development.
Well, that's something right there that's worthwhile to support in any way. I just from this small amount of stories that you're telling, these powerful stories, I understand why you do what you do, and it's like I said before, people think that it's not possible. There's just too much to go around, but you got to just do something.
Do something, right.
So what I wanted to say was, for the audience, this is a local resale shop. Can you give your address one more time?
Yes, we're at 2120 Plum Grove Road in Rolling Meadows in the Plum Grove Strip Mall Center. And we're open Wednesday through Saturday, and we take donations on those days. And we'd love to have you as a customer, as a volunteer, as a donor, as a reporter, as anything you want to do to help advance our cause. We aren't here without all that help, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, and the website is anniesresalefortheworld.org.
Yes.
And I believe that if they want to contact you, that they can contact you through the site. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. And we have a Facebook presence and an Instagram presence as well.
Are those links on the site?
Yes, I believe they are. Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
regardless, we'll provide the links in the description below for everybody tuning in. If you have anything that is in good condition that you want to donate, this is the place to take it.
And we give a tax receipt for all donated items if you want it.
That is important too, sure. But it's if you're gonna be shopping for something, stop in, because it is a trendy thing too. I mean, you find great deals, great items. I mean, things that you'll never find anywhere else that aren't being made anymore. And stop by, spend a few bucks for a good cause, get something that you'll love. Tell your friends, tell people about what we're talking about here. Spread the word as much as you can, because that's how these things get done. And there's plenty of people in need, so the more support, the better, because
That's right.
you'll have more resources to put into those people's hands.
Absolutely.
I wish we had 4 hours, because there's plenty to talk about more, but unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. It is a really, really, really huge pleasure to have you guys
Thank you.
on today, and these stories are touching, and I look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We hope to see lots of you in our shop.
Absolutely. Well, for everybody,
Thanks much.
yes, absolutely. Well, there's another one in the books. Click the links. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.